Hello students, once again this is Mr. Nez and I want to show you a short video about how to write the equation of a circle in standard form whenever we're given the center and radius. So to get started, we need to first remember the equation for a circle in standard form, right, is dependent on two things. We need the center and the radius length in order to write the equation. So the center is always going to be a point HK, and then the r is going to be the length of the radius, okay, however long that radius is. So when we do that, the two things that we're trying to figure out is how we can incorporate the center and the radius into the equation. Now, homework example number 1 says, given the center, which is at -3 and 8, and the radius of 9, write its equation in standard form. Well, whenever we come across this problem, we just have to remember that the x coordinate is going to be, of the center, is h, the y coordinate is k, and then obviously the radius is going to be the 9. Then we're just going to substitute it in for an equation here, right? So I'm just going to rewrite this equation up here, the standard form equation, but substitute the h and k and the r. So in this case, the equation would say x minus h, which is going to be -3, squared, plus y minus k, which is in this case 8, squared, is equal to r squared, which is 9 squared. So whenever you're writing the equation, make sure you remember to put these squared pieces on all the terms. That is one of the simplest ways to get wrong answers. Okay, so make sure that you don't forget to put the squares on all these terms. Now we can simplify the double negative here, and then that turns into x plus 3 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 9 squared, which is 81. And that's it. We have written our circle in standard form here. And that's it. It's pretty easy. All we're doing is taking the center point and the radius and then replacing it in those spots of the standard form equation. Now the next example looks like this. We have, given the center is at the origin and the diameter is 22, write the equation of the circle in standard form. So with this, right, center at the origin, right, so we have to remember the origin of a graph, right? I'm just going to show you a small example. The origin is going to be right in the where the x and the y coordinates intersect, and the origin is going to be at the point 0, 0, right? So now we can say h and k are both going to be 0, and then our diameter is going to be 22. So remember, the diameter is equal to 2 radiuses, right? So that means we have to cut the diameter in half to find the radius. So in this case, our radius our radius is going to be 22 divided by 2, which ends up being 11. So now we have the two things that we need in order to write the equation. We have the radius, and then we also have the center point, the coordinates for the center point. Then from there, we're going to use those two pieces to write the equation. And it goes x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared is equal to 11 squared. All right. If we put 22 there, that is going to be incorrect. All right. So now we can just simplify this down. We don't actually need to write these zeros, because when you subtract 0 from something, the answer is just going to be 0. So this ends up being x squared plus y squared is equal to 11 squared, which is 11 times 11, which is 121. And there it is. We have a standard form equation for a circle centered at the origin with the radius of 11 units. And that's it. So the two things that you need to pay attention to whenever you're writing the equation of a circle is make sure that you know how to find the radius, and then you know where that center point is at. Those are two key components of the equation for a circle. Now this last example, right, it says given the endpoints of a diameter of a circle are -1 and 3 and 5 and -5. Write the equation in standard form. Okay, so in this case, we still need to do two things, right? We still need to find the length of the radius, right? We need to know what the radius is. And then we also need to figure out where that center point is. Okay, so the two things that we need are the radius and center. Now, to get started on this problem, you have to first develop a strategy for how we're going to do this. So if we know the diameter, right, the endpoints of the diameter of a circle. So that means if we have a circle, right, and then we have one point over here and another point over here, the diameter goes all the way through the circle, and it also goes through the middle of the circle. It goes through the center. So if our diameter goes from one end of the circle through the center to the other end, the halfway point of our diameter is going to be the center. So in order to find out where our center is for this circle, we need to use the midpoint formula to find the center, right? So we're going to use the midpoint formula to find the center. Okay, and then from there we still need to figure out how long that radius is, and the radius is going to go from the center point to the outer end of the circle. So what we can do is we can use the distance formula to find that length. So we're going to use the distance formula to find the radius length. All right, so we're going to do two things. Now, first, the midpoint formula to find the center. Find the center. Now, we're going to use a distance formula, and this is what it looks like. The midpoint formula is going to be half of the distance between these two. So the midpoint formula says we take the x sub 2 minus or plus x sub 1 divided by 2. That's the coordinate for the x, and then the coordinate for the y is going to be at y sub 2 plus y sub 1 divided by 2. That's our midpoint formula. Now all we have to do is designate our x1 and y1. I'm going to use a smaller pen real quick just so that we can label this as x1, y1, x2, y2. Now that we have that, I'm going to do the addition, right? X sub 2 plus, so that's going to be 5 plus negative 1 divided by 2, and then negative 5 plus 3 divided by 2. Negative 1 plus negative, or 5 plus negative 1, that's just basically 5 minus 1 is 4, divided by 2 is going to be 2. Then negative 5 plus 3 will be negative 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 will be negative 1. So our midpoint of the diameter, which is our center point, is going to be here. So now we found the center. The next thing we have to do is find the radius. And we're going to use the distance formula with that. So from the center point to the outside edge, right? So that means from this point to this point. So I'm just going to say here's our center point. It's going to be at 2 and negative 1. One of our points of the diameter is right here. I'm just going to designate that one 5 and negative 5. And then now that's where I'm going to use the distance formula. This will be x1, y1. This would be x2, y2. And then use the distance formula to find the radius. So my radius will equal the square root of x sub 2, which is 5, minus x sub 1, which is 2 squared, plus y sub 2, which is negative 5, minus negative 1 squared. Now, from here, we take 5 minus 2 is 3 squared, plus negative 5 minus negative 1, that's plus 1, equals negative 4 squared. Then from there we keep simplifying. 3 squared is 9 plus 4 squared is 16. Then now we get the square root of 25, and the square root of 25 is going to be 5. So our radius is going to equal 5 units. Now we have our radius is 5 and our center point is at 2 and negative 1. So now we can use those parts to plug into our standard form equation. So remember, this is H, this is K, and there's R. Now our equation will look like this. X minus 2 squared plus y minus negative 1 squared is equal to 5 squared. Now that double negative, I want to change to a positive, so I'm just going to rewrite the whole thing. X minus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 25. There it is. There is our equation. So in our homework today, what I'm going to be looking for, what I'm going to expect you to be able to do, right, is use some problem solving skills to find the radius and the center. There we go. If you have any questions, just go back through and watch the video again. If not, we'll talk about it when I get back tomorrow. Have a good day, guys. Bye.